What's that? Spring onions? So right, a little bird told me that today you want to grow spring onions. Well, why would you want to grow spring onions? Now, spring onions are great. They're great for salads. They're very, very versatile, spring onions. They've got a typical onion taste, but more as a green. I like to chop them up, put them in salads or stir fries. Really useful for stir fries as well, these. They are easier to grow, but one of the things I always did when I grew spring onions was I used to sow them every spring, and pretty much how everyone tells you to grow them. I put them in the ground, and then by the end of the year they sort of get half the sort of thickness you want, or not, and they never really performed very well for me, spring onions, until I actually started to grow them as a perennial. What I did was I sowed a load and I left them in over winter, and what you'll notice about spring onions or bunching onions or scallions is that they divide at the base. And what I found now is I've got a whole bed dedicated to spring onions, but I don't do the sow every year and crop. I will sow every year and try and develop new areas for them, but I find that they will just basically grow as a perennial, which is a very, very useful thing. I'm always trying to find new ways of getting greens with little energy input and the constant hassle of resowing all the time. So that bed I've got over there in the vegetable plot, that's just a perfect sustainable green, especially early on in the year. And if you try and grow spring onions as a perennial, like I have done for a couple of years now, you'll find that you can actually divide them at the base, chop them down to the ground, dig them up, and each bulb will sort of separate into a few bulbs, and you can move it around and just let it come up every year. And ever since I started doing that, I've just had spring onions with no work at all every single year, and very early on in spring. So I mean, generally what you want to try and do with onions is you want a fertile soil, you want it loose, and you want to keep them weeded. Keep them weeded because they don't like the competition. I mean, if you're starting from scratch, get a seed packet of them. I mean, in the UK we always go on about White Lisbon, so I'll be sowing some here today, and then I'll show you some that I've had growing there. It's their third year now, and they're about to go to seed. Sometimes I actually let the flowers go to seed, and I will take the seed heads, and what you end up is a sort of seed with a growth out of it, and you can actually just take them out and put them in the soil and divide up your stock like that. But they are a really, really useful vegetable. I love them. I love them because I can go out and pick them as and when I want them. What I do in summertime is I go out and I just like a series of greens that I can just put together quickly. I don't like this whole idea of having to sow every year and just take the whole thing up in one go. If I can come and harvest a bit at a time, that suits me just fine. And spring onions will give you that flexibility. Not bad. So first thing you want to do is get your pot, get your seed. Now the seeds are like the allium family, like all onions, leeks, things like that. They're the small sort of little black seed. And what I like to do, because they're quite a small, thin seed, is don't bury them, don't submerge them under a kilometre worth of soil. Just put a sprinkle of soil over the top. Sometimes what I like to do is put a sandy sort of loam over the top.
Spread them nice and
thin. Sprinkle the seeds on top, and then I just give it a light covering. Now I usually put them in a circular pot, because what I've noticed about these spring onions is that the roots can before they have much mass to the roots, they really send down some long roots, and they'll really dominate a small vessel of soil without much denseness to them. The roots really run deep, and it's the same with leeks as well. So I like to give them that bit of extra depth, and I like to sort of pull them apart from the pot as they grow, and then just pot them straight into the ground outside. Yeah, basically. Oi, hope you're paying attention at the back there. So what will happen is, once you've sowed your spring onions, sort of springtime, March, you'll end up with something like that. But what you've got to try and do is avoid letting weeds get in there like I've done, because I get a little bit lazy, you see. I give myself so much stuff to do, and then before I know it, I get myself in a bit of a mess. But that's what you want. I want them to get a little bit bigger first, maybe a couple more weeks growth on them, and then I will pop them straight into the bed next to them other ones I've got out there. So if you end up with something like that, you know you're roughly going right. If you go down the sowing method and you don't disturb them too much when they're seedlings, if you sow them in situ a little bit later on in spring when they've got the warmth and everything that they needed, they can be cropped in as little as 8 weeks. But as I say, I've never managed to do it, but you know, it might be different where you are. Another good thing about these, because they are generally, alliums are quite good at getting through cold winters. So you can sow these in September and overwinter them. Just get them strong enough in, use that last bit of warmth in the season, put them in the ground and let them strengthen up like that. And then before you know it, you'll have your little happy spring onions in spring, when everyone else is running around like headless chickens trying to sow them. Or you just keep them in the ground forever, like I do, and then you can have the best of both worlds. Another thing you want to remember with them is they can bend. So if it's very exposed where you are, you've got a dog like running through the vegetable patch, you're going to snap them down to the ground and they're going to fall over. So best to try and keep them in a sheltered position. Nice fluffy soil. Want to get in there and do the weeding before the weeds get in there and overtake them, and you'll have a nice supply of winter greens, spring greens, summer greens. If you want to go down the perennial route as well, greenhouse, great idea from. Put them in the polytunnel. You'll find yourself getting an extended season out of them. Divide them up as you need them, and you'll be laughing. These are my spring onions. Don't laugh. You laughing at my spring onions? Yeah, so these are the ones that I've been growing as a perennial for a while. There's no particular difference in taste. They're still nice and tender. I would certainly give it a go. It will save you sowing every year and wasting yourself a load of time. So there you have it, spring onions. A versatile green, very tasty. Why not? Give it a go.